And you are live.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to a virtual meeting of the City of Dublin Board of Zoning Appeals. The Ohio legislature passed several emergency laws to address the pandemic, including the ability for public entities to have virtual meetings. For the present time, and hopefully not for too much longer, we are holding our meetings online and live streaming those meetings on YouTube. You can access the live stream on the city's website. To submit any questions or comments during the meeting, please use the form under the streaming video on the city's website. These questions and comments will be relayed to the board by the meeting moderator. We want to accommodate public participation to the greatest extent possible and welcome your comments on the cases. Please use a valid name and address when submitting your comments and refrain from making any inappropriate comments. This is not a perfect system, but we will do our best and we do appreciate your patience. Thank you. So I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order, please. And will we do the roll call, please?
Ms. Herbert? Ms. Herbert?
Here, sorry, here.
Okay. Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Deschler?
Here.
Mr. Nye?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Okay, very good. Next, we'll have the acceptance of documents and the approval of the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept the documents into the record and approve the August 27th, 2020 meeting minutes?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Deschler?
Yes.
Mr. Nye?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Herbert?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Tonight, we have one case. This is case number 20-135V. The property is located at 8065 Pleasant Drive, and it's for a non-use area variance. The property is also known as and I hope no disrespect that I don't mispronounce this, but I believe it's Habali Residence. Hopefully I got that correct. Is the applicant present for this case?
Yes, we are.
Very good. All right, I'm going to swear in the witnesses, and anyone who is intending to give testimony at this hearing, please raise your right hand while I swear you in. Anyone intending to address the board in this case this evening, please raise your right hand and answer in the affirmative. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board?
Yes.
Mr. Hubali?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, tonight, all right, thank you. And then our presenter tonight is Zach Hounshell, and I will give him a moment to share his presentation on behalf of the staff. Zach?
Perfect. Thank you, Marty. Good evening, board. This is an application for review and approval of a non-use area variance for the Hubali residence. This site is highlighted in yellow on the screen. It is located within the Oak Park subdivision, which is southwest of the intersection of Mitchell Dewitt Road and Highland Croy Road. To give you a greater feel for the site and consideration tonight and its surroundings, this site does back up to a rather large open space reserve to the rear or to the northwest of the site, and both sites adjoining this property are developed within the subdivision. And to give you more context of just where we are, this is the south, east, and north elevations of the building. The applicant is requesting a variance to the Oak Park development text for subarea A, which includes the park homes, section 3C, and this refers directly to the 25-foot rear yard setback. Zoning code does allow a 5-foot encroachment for uncovered patios within the rear yard setback, so it is actually a 20-foot setback for uncovered patios. The applicant is requesting to encroach this 20-foot setback for uncovered patios by 9.1 feet for an approximately 510 square foot uncovered patio. On the site plan shown on the screen, there is an area that is highlighted in orange. This is the buildable space per zoning code. So if a variance was not being requested tonight, the applicant would be required to place their patio within the orange space shown on the screen. It should also be noted that this is the third request within Oak Park to this rear yard setback for uncovered patios. The previous two applications, one which was heard in 2016 and one which was heard in August of 2020, so last month, both were approved. The applicant has provided a brief statement addressing the variance request, stating the three-car garage pushing the footprint of the building back to occupy a majority of the buildable space on the site. This led to a minimal space to develop for rear yard amenities. Staff has reviewed this application to all applicable non-use variance criteria and are recommending approval of the non-use variance tonight. If the board has any questions for staff, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is also here to address any questions and concerns you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Board members, does anybody have any questions for Zach at this time? No. How about Sarah? Do you have any questions?
None for me.
All right. Jason, Joe?
Yeah, you know what? Let me think about this for a second. Zach, last month, obviously, we had that one where the city recommended disapproval and the board went against it. And I read through the report. I'm a little bit, do we have any of the same factors as there was last month that led us to our decision with regard to the certain style of three-car garage, the misrepresentations by the builder? I didn't see anything like that in the report. I didn't see anything like that in the applicant's statement.
To my understanding, no. With this, I believe the three-car garage on this is one large door and one small door for the three-car garage. I would let the applicant speak to that further. In terms of the buildable space to the side and rear yards of this site, it is more applicable to the Snowdrop Court application, which was in 2016 that was approved, where there's minimal space to locate the patio to the side yards. There's approximately 3 to 4 feet for this property to both side yards. And it's a range between 5 feet and I believe 9 feet to meet zoning code for this, any uncovered patio. So those factors certainly did lead to staff recommending approval of this application.
Oh my God. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I have a 20-pound cat who has decided to join the meeting. I'll show you in a minute.
Hey, Zach, real quick, following up on what you said with regard to the buildable space, is there some right that allows somebody to have the space for a patio? Or I'm just curious about that. I mean, the lot, presumably this was the original owner. Obviously, we can find out that here in a few minutes. But is there any kind of automatic right or allowance that a homeowner gets to be able to build a patio beyond what's allowed per code?
No. So the buildable area is obviously for any principal structure and any accessory structure. So if somebody was even wanting to come through with a shed instead of a patio, it would have to meet those same requirements. They would be held to the same standards and would have to be located within that buildable area. So the answer is no, which is hence why we have the variance tonight to extend beyond that 20 feet. I guess the only right we have that would vary from the 25-foot setback is that 5-foot encroachment for uncovered patios. That's all we would have in terms of, excuse me, zoning though.
Okay, I'm good for now. Thanks, Zach.
Any other board members have any questions regarding this? We will proceed then to allow the applicant to present any additional information they would like in support of their application for the variance. Mr. Bali?
Hello, everyone. So, are you able to hear me?
Oh, yes. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, sorry. So, as Mr. Zach mentioned, like due to the buildable area being used for 3.5 car garage, the house has been set back in the backyard, and we are left with 20-foot backyard now. So, if we go with a 20.
I'm sorry. Before we get too far, I do want you to state your name and address for the record so that we have it in our record.
Yeah, this is Mrs. Hubali, and the address is 8065 Pleasant Drive, Dublin, Ohio.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Only 29 feet left in the backyard if we leave the 25 feet encroachment, whereas zoning allows five more feet. So we'll be left with only 10 feet to build a patio. So it is very less. And because you can say this is a common problem in other homes in that same neighborhood. And so even if you get like, we are requesting now for a 14 feet encroachment, but zoning allows 5. So ideally we're requesting 9.1 feet extension. So with this, even we are still leaving that 10 feet easement. So since there is no individual property or then there is no livelihood behind our backyard, I think it would not restrict anybody, like it should not hurt anybody having this extension. So we would request the board to give us the approval on this.
I have a question. Are you the original homeowners in this on this property?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
I mean, I'll ask a couple of questions if no one else has any, Sarah or Joe. Nobody. Okay, so original owner, did you guys see the plan? You know, I presumably when it was being built, chose the 3-car garage, chose the model of the home.
Yes, it does. But actually, being our first property, we didn't know that the easement thing, which is like 10 feet plus 15 more feet. We really didn't know about the easement. What we thought that if we have a land, if we have a property, that's our property, we can just build whatever we want. Not whatever we want. If you want to build a patio, I can easily go and build. I can just take a permission and build it. So that is why I thought only 10 feet easement we have is a mandatory thing which we have to not build anything. So that's why initially when I submitted my patio plan, I left the 10 feet easement and then I drew my patio plan. I didn't know that there's 15 more feet of enforcement which I'll be doing. And then when Mike explained to me that no, this is not the way. It's a 10 feet easement plus you have 15 more feet of enforcement which you are doing. So you're not allowed to do that. And that is the when I opened my plan again and I went through and I spoke to a couple of my friends and then I tried to understand what exactly this map is. So that is how we know. But initially when I was buying the property or buying the house, I didn't know that it's like we are not allowed to build in 25 feet of my property line, or else we would have just thought about this earlier.
This is a spec home, so we like the spec home and we moved in. So this is not the house which we built.
It was a spec home.
It was
already built in here. And also when we spoke to a couple of patio builders, they said that usually it's like only 10 feet of easement. So we were like, oh, okay, then we can buy the house. So that's when we got the house, thinking we can build a patio in the future. But only when I applied for the permission, that is the when I came to know that we are not allowed to do that.
So even some of the friends whom we spoke to, they live in the, they're not in the, like they live interiors, like within the community. So there is different encroachment for different site lot. That's what we heard. So especially the homes which will, which are at the end of.
Yeah, actually, after applying the application, what I came to know was that all the houses which are on the perimeter of the neighborhood, they have different easement compared to the houses which are inside the neighborhood. So which we were not aware of, and yeah, that we came to know only after we applied for the permission first time.
Any additional questions, board members?
Not for the homeowners. I have one for Sarah. She's gonna like this. I was on the board in 2016. I know you looked last month and told us you compared the two. I believe it was you. Can you compare and tell us how this relates to that one from 2016?
Yeah, actually, Marty and I were both on the board for this one. And when I read this, I thought, well, this is exactly like the Snowdrop court case. So I agree with Zach. Where did he go? That this is very similar to that application, if not pretty identical.
I agree as well.
They had an issue where they were practically built the house out, and the same here. They practically built it out to the
Property.
to the entire, yeah. So
That's my question, and my concern then comes with precedent. If we told someone else, I mean, I know it was a prior board, and I know two of our members were on it, that they could get a variance for the exact same situation. I feel bound, at least somewhat by precedent, that we need to honor that same standard and apply it equally to those of the same neighborhood. I think that's the only fair way to do it, in my opinion.
If I may,
Agree with that.
if I may interject, that is obviously one of the criteria is the recurrent in nature, which is, it's not one of the one that has to be met, but it's of the 2 of 4. And that was an item that staff had noted, and we have noted, is the recurrence of these patio requests in the neighborhood, especially recently. So, at least in our review, that criteria wasn't met because we felt it is becoming recurrent and potentially something we need to talk at a staff level in terms of the Oak Park development, but that didn't deter it from receiving approval as the other 3 were met.
And Zach, I recall at the end of our meeting on Snowdrop Court, we raised the issue at the time. I know it wasn't with you, but with staff, that we believe this is going to, this could conceivably come before us for a lot of people in that subdivision. And it looks like we're starting to see it. And at the time, the response was, well, the staff will probably have to start looking at some sort of other solution. So I think maybe that time has come. I don't know what you can do, but yeah.
Absolutely. That was one of the last things, looking back at the minutes for that Snowdrop court, that point was brought up by the board. So we are certainly approaching that time. If not at that time, I can't speak to where we're at with that, but that's certainly something we'll be considering moving forward.
So other question for staff. Is there a way to get in front of this at the staff level for future developments that are approved? Because basically the builder can build it right to the limit, and then the homeowner may or may not know about this issue. And we're just creating a downstream appeals process that could be addressed at the upfront point when the home is built in the first place, to notify the home buyer that this is an issue. Because otherwise a builder may not communicate that in the process.
Right.
Ask it, right?
Yeah, and that's a fair question to ask. Honestly, from staff's standpoint, there's not a ton we can do because we're not really involved with the property owner. Once these planned unit development districts come through, we don't see each individual property come through. It's only, we kind of have to hope that the builder will relay this information, which is obviously we get into these scenarios. So we try to get out in front of it, especially when we get recurrence of these items. We try to get out in front of it and talk with the developer. But that's certainly a consideration. We try to avoid this, but in the rare occasions it does happen.
Setbacks in the first place, if developers are going to put the houses on the lots in such a way that they're going to encroach as soon as somebody wants to build a regular patio, then it feels a little bit like they're gaming the system, and would prefer to see more setback discussions to accommodate for a patio that we expect will at some point come when a new property is built.
We are having setback discussions currently with Planning and Zoning Commission. So this is an item that will certainly come up more.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Observation. This one, and I believe the other.
Artie, you've muted yourself, so we can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I muted and unmuted. All right, so can you hear me now? I just wanted to observe that this particular property backs up against a no build area or no other houses. So, and that is the same as what we had last month on Pleasant Drive, where in these two cases, at least, they are not building towards an adjacent property owner. They are building towards a green space from the developer's plan. I also would like to support Ms. Miller's comment that having them game the system and continue to build the houses to the edges and then leave the homeowner with requiring a exemption or a variance in order to build their patios after the fact is of an ongoing concern for this PUD and others. But just for the record, I believe the one we approved last week was similarly situated where there are no houses behind them. So the extension into the setback is not going to adversely impact a neighbor directly behind.
That's a good point, Martha. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Sarah, do you remember on Snowdrop, was the owner the original owner? Or Zach?
Or Marty?
My understanding is they weren't.
I
were
don't
not?
think that. I think they were the second owner, but I don't frankly know that with 100% certainty.
Zach, can you confirm?
Give me one moment.
Okay. Look, here are my concerns. I think it needs to be proactively done by the city in this subdivision. I wasn't on the board in 2016, so I can't speak for that. Last month's was different. It was entirely different because there was a misrepresentation. Here, there was not a misrepresentation. And I'm torn because there's not an ability to build a patio that they want. But how do we weigh what they walked into? If the spec home was already there, so the home was already there. It wasn't even they were building it. And they were the owner. They could have asked questions. I know that they may not necessarily have known what to ask at the time, but essentially they were on constructive notice and actual notice because they were provided with the plans and the home was there at the time. There weren't any misrepresentations by the builder similar to what we had last month. And unlike the Snowdrop, which I think they were the second owner, right? So there's no inaction. I'm just not certain that those criteria are met in this situation, unfortunately, for me right now. There's just too many differences. You know, if the city wants to move and alter the no build for that entire subdivision, so be it. But for me right now, it's a no.
And I can confirm that the Snowdrop property, they were second property owners of that house.
Zach, what was the city's recommendation on the Snowdrop property?
It was approval.
I get, Jason, I tend to agree with you on most of these things, and I kind of do with this one. And I look at this not as a comparison to last month, but as a comparison to 2016. And I guess the concern that I have is if the approval was recommended then, and I agree, you, Alicia, and I were not on the board then, but how is it fair to a homeowner to come into it and say someone with the same circumstances was approved, and then now they are not? The city recommended approval in both, and so I don't know that I disagree with you, but what are your thoughts on that? That's
Well, they weren't the same circumstances because these were the original owners. The Snowdrop, they were the second owners, so they came into it separately, right? There wasn't any inaction here. And presumably, I guess you could look at it that these buyers didn't have to buy the home.
Yeah, and I guess because it's a spec home, because one of the arguments that I was, kind of buying into that you had was it was started, when they got there, and so they didn't have to buy it. But that's the same for Snowdrop, right? They didn't have to buy it. They could have looked into it. So I'm just trying to find the distinction and the difference.
That's a good point. My fear is that I think Alicia hit on it. Is that that subdivision, almost every home has zero property.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I don't know. It's
a slippery slope kind of situation.
It is. It's an unfortunate situation that it's kind of on a reactive position, which is what our board has been placed on right now.
And Mr. Hubali has something he wants to say. I didn't want to cut him.
Yeah, I know we are the first owner of this house. But even then, when I asked the builder, he clearly said me that you have to leave a 10 feet of easement to build anything, because we had this plan to build the patio initially when we got in here, because they are still building the lots here. So the builder is right here. So as the builder, he said that you have to leave just 10 feet of easement, which is by the city. And apart from that, you can build your patio. So that is when we thought, okay, in the future, I can build the patio here. And even before submitting my request to the city, I spoke to the home association here and also the builder. And even he was surprised that he's saying that it's only 10 feet of easement. You can build whatever you want within your limit, but I don't know why the city is asking you for 25 feet. So even they don't know that it's more than 10 feet. So that is the reason when I purchased the house, even being the first owner, I asked them how much can I go for my patio. They said, you can just leave the 10 feet from your end property line, and then you can build the patio. So that is what I was thinking all these years. Only after submitting to the city, I came to know that it's not 10 feet, it's 10 plus 15 feet, 25 feet. And even now my builder says it's 10 feet. So while buying the property,
was that a conversation you had before you purchased the property?
Yes. So even now, if I go to my builder and I tell him that I want to build a patio, he's like, yeah, you have to just leave the 10 feet of easement. That's it.
Yeah, and so I guess what I think of that is, I don't know that we could say that you would or wouldn't have bought the property, but I think that it goes to the city. And Jason, that's one of the concerns that I have. If this builder or builders, depending on who it is telling people this to get people to buy properties, and then they're kind of stuck. And I know we have a buyer beware situation, but I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit similar to last month, where there seems to be some action by the builder that's creating the situation, and maybe some misleading statements. I don't know if I understand the concern you have, and I have the same one. I don't know how we fix this, but I worry this is creating a pattern that homeowners have been kind of led into this situation, and we're going to keep seeing this.
We were concerned about that in 2016, and that's why we had the conversation in the minutes that this should probably be something that's addressed for all of Oak Park subdivision. I'm supportive of the application for what it's worth, so I will vote to approve.
But it wasn't addressed. And here we are 4 years later, back-to-back months, dealing with the same issue. Hey, Zach, real quick for me, just clarify, how much is the, how many feet are we giving them if, so from the home?
It's 9.1 is what it said, Zach.
Well, no, they can go up to 15, but they want 20 total. What's, I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up.
I can pull up the site plan here.
Will you share it too, Zach, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, that.
So they are asking for 9.1 feet away from the building. So 9.1 feet further than that 20-foot line edge here.
Green line, the 20-foot line?
The green is what they are proposing. The red is the distance from the property line. I don't have the dimension here, but it is 9.1. Between the space between the green and the orange.
If they stayed within the approved area, the yellow, what is the distance from the outcrop there to the edge? What is that distance? It's not particularly noted. It looks like.
It is 5.9, approximately 5.9 from the furthest point of the house, and then you'd be able to add 4 feet to the edge. So from the edge, it's probably about 9 feet, 9.5 feet, and you have 5.5 feet here.
And that's from the chimney, so that's actually bumped out from the actual wall of the house. Am I reading that right, Zach?
Correct. Okay. And then it's 4 feet, approximately 4 feet on the sides.
With 6 feet from the property line being required as the side setback.
Correct. 6 feet is the minimum side yard setback for both side yards.
And in this PUD, from the second drawing in your package, where it shows the site plan, it doesn't show any further development behind that area. In fact, there's a retention pond behind the property line there on the subject's property. And similarly, the other lot that was granted on Pleasant Drive, it bumped up to, or it was on the outer rim, if you will, of the PUD.
Correct. They both abut the same reserve. So the reserve stretches from north to south and covers both of these.
Yes. So I'm wondering does their PUD in general need to be amended to accommodate this reoccurring problem so that we don't have to create variances for each of these?
So it would be up to the HOA, and the application would be an amended final development plan where they would be able to amend the rear yard setback. So that rear yard setback would be adjusted for the entirety of the development. Now that would be a planning and zoning commission matter. That's not something that would come through the Board of Zoning Appeals, but that is a process that that could be had should the HOA decide to pursue that.
Do you know if the HOA is still controlled by the developer?
It's a great question. I do not know that currently. Like I said, I know they're still developing.
They're still developing in there, yeah.
So I would guess yes, but I don't want to put my stamp of approval on that answer. So
yeah, got it.
Well, and Zach, and looking at that picture again, I'm glad Jason asked that. I mean, we also had the situation where it appeared, if I'm remembering right from last month, there was a potential for a side yard. I mean, not ideal, but a side yard build. With this one, that's not feasible. With the setbacks on the side, there's not a way to build a patio on the side, right?
yeah, I still have that slide that showed that before. So I figured it could potentially come in handy here.
Hey, I just want to throw this out there real quick. I mean, is a special condition every single property in the neighborhood?
No, I would say no.
Well, that's what's being proposed.
Yeah, but would it be, Jason, if they're interior properties with someone behind them? I mean, I guess this is different. It's unique to me. It might be all the fringe, outer edge properties. And I think your question then becomes, what's the definition of special, right? Is that kind of where you're going with this? Is if
Right.
everybody has it, how's it special?
I mean, look, honestly, last month there was a compelling argument about misrepresentations and about concessions and the guy did demonstrate that he had the only garage that was like that, right? We have the evidence of that. That misrepresentation, the altering of the garage, the concessions from the builder about upgrades, all those things. That was the special condition that we found last month, right? Last month. Here, it's the special condition is, well, that's just the way the neighborhood is. I mean, a lot of those, even the interior properties have significantly small yards, and I'm not even sure what the setbacks are for each of those properties. When I've driven through there are homes that have patios on them. I mean,
Yeah, last month, did the builder even give them a credit of
right?
10
For upgrades on the interior on some things.
that he agreed that there was a mistake made.
Right.
But that had to do with the way they actually handled the garages. In this
Right.
case, as noted in other method available, the discussion in the staff report, the applicant could modify the plan to meet the code, but it would result in a patio with as little as 5 feet in width of usable patio space. So, in my opinion, the builder has created this problem.
Right, but it's not our problem to fix as our board. I think this is a planning and zoning issue that needs to be at the forefront, not necessarily on a reactive appeal process. Should be proactively addressed.
I agree with that.
Well, I agree that perhaps the entire area should be proactively looked at as far as making an adjustment so other properties adjacent to this applicant and last month's applicant don't have to go through this. But I am still of the opinion that the board should, and I'm just weighing out here, I think the board should grant the variance based on the fact that a house this size with a 5-foot patio, that just seems ridiculous. And it
Well, it's
almost sounds
unfair is
like
what
the
it is.
builder did not properly disclose on this spec home. And more importantly, I think because there's no one behind this property. So in this case, there's no, that is a special condition of this property, is that it has no one behind it. They're not encroaching into an adjacent property owner.
Don't you think it's also a special condition? There's no room on the side lot. It's not built. There's not enough to build there's not a reasonable space to put a patio. I mean, I think had we didn't have those other special conditions, I felt like, they could do a long and narrow patio or do it on the side. This home doesn't offer that as an option. So basically we're telling them you virtually can't have a patio if we don't grant this variance. And that's where I struggle and find it a special condition. They don't have the buildable space on the side. There's no one behind them. And, that to me makes it similar enough to the 2016 one that I guess I have concern. If it's an interior home and there's someone behind them, first owner, second owner, I think that creates a different circumstance. Who would be harmed by this? And that's what's special about this. There's no one behind them that would be impacted by this build. And so I guess I look, Jason, a little bit differently at that special condition because of that. And I mean, I'm still struggling with it a lot.
I don't think, everybody's making great points. It's frankly patently unfair to see what the owners have in that area to build. I mean, really, it's not fair. But it's not like if we say no or we request them to table the application that something can't be done in the interim where the HOA moves to alter those builds, and it's done from that perspective, right? So it's not technically a no, it's just hang tight for a little bit. Maybe there's another avenue that it can be done to not only benefit you, but also benefit your neighbors. I don't think it's appropriate for us to move forward with this and then be in the same situation again and again. I'd like to see a table of the application, and then from a proactive perspective, move. If the builder is still in control of the HOA, which it sounds like they are, then have an effort to alter some of those no build areas.
Jason,
Which
I think that it honors the 2016 precedent to have them do that. And in fact, you're right. I mean, are we going to come and have a meeting every month for the next 10 years addressing these applications for this neighborhood? Or maybe even more concerning is next month going to have 20 applications because it's, it's kind of spreading like wildfire through the neighborhood. I guess I'm not opposed to the request to table it. I don't know what the process is, though. I don't know if Zach, if you have the ability to go, if they did that, if you could go to the builder and say, hey, can we fix this and fix it for a lot of people? And then if not, they could be back on the, on the docket again in a month or so. And I don't know what their plan is either.
Yep. Amending a development plan is what we're talking about, and taking that process through planning and zoning and planning, right?
Correct. So
Before we would act on this application. You're proposing
So-
that they do that before we act on this application.
the issue you get to is that that's not, as of right now, and it could be in the future, that's not an item they're willing to consider. That's also a thing to play into effect here, that this is obviously a variance request as it stands currently. And those changes do take months as well in terms of amended final development plans. So we've had developments come through and modify their development text, but like I said, it takes a lot of time to be able to do that. And obviously it's the time on the HOA's end as well, because it's usually something they have to vote over, that the residents usually have to vote over. So it gets a little tricky. It's certainly, like I said, it's certainly something we're aware of, the recurrence of these now. And as staff, we want to take head at that moving forward following this application. And we certainly intend to do so in the coming weeks to try to avoid having these frequent discussions about this. So I mean, it's pretty uncommon to have the same issue in the same subdivision back to back. We're trying to avoid that moving forward with any future applications.
Any more discussion by the board?
My only other comment would be to something Jason said earlier. I think with the 2016, and again, I feel like we're I don't want to use the word stuck, but I think bound a little bit by that is if we say no tonight, I guess we're saying we find the special condition only to be being the second owner. And I guess I find that's being a spec home, something that was in process when they got it and were told by the builder to be similar to buying it as a second home. It was already being built. I mean, if the situation was you weren't the original builder, they had the ability to not buy the house and they chose to, and that's the same as what these people had. So I think because of that, I'm like 51-49, but I think I would vote for approval and granting the variance.
Ms. Miller, do you have any further comments that you'd like to share with the board?
I have no other questions.
Ms. Herbert?
I have none, and I would vote to approve.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the variance to the Oak Park Development Text, Sub-Area A, Park Homes 3C, to allow an uncovered patio to encroach within the required 20-foot rear yard setback by 9.1 feet as submitted in their request for variance? Is there a motion?
Ms. Cooper, if I may interject, I apologize. I just want to confirm too, we have had no public comment on this.
Oh, I'm so glad you spoke up because after all our discussion, I failed to ask you that. So thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Marty, I move to approve the non-use variance to the Oak Park Development Tax Sub Area A Park Homes. Room and rule 3C to encroach within the required 20-foot rear yard setback for the uncovered patios by 9.1 feet.
Is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes, approved.
Ms. Miller,
No.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler.
For the reasons I stated before, no.
All right, we have voted with a split vote of 3-2 in favor of approving the variance. And I guess that will conclude our case. The next item on the agenda, communications. Is there anything new for communications?
Nothing new. I would look forward to, we don't have any applications yet for next month, but we do have a few that are in the works. So mark the meeting because there's a good chance we'll probably have it. Other than that, there are no further communications.
Hey, Zach, real quick, that meeting's on the 22nd, right? Because I think Baker's Night is the 29th, if I just saw the tweet from the city. Is that correct?
I'm going to take your word for it. I believe you're correct. I don't think we would have that on the 29th. I don't have the schedule in front of me. I apologize.
If it is, I would ask that we move it off of Beggar's Night.
They did. I think that's why. I think it's on the 22nd. It's a week before, so.
Okay. I know it's on the chair agenda. So Marty should have that.
It does say the 29th. Thanks for pointing that out.
Maybe
but
it does.
Say the next meeting is
It
the
does.
29th.
It does say the 29th. Yikes.
It's also
Well,
site published as the 29th as the pre-published dates.
Okay. We will discuss that internally and let you know.
Yes, because we can either defer till the next month, which is, I believe, the third week of November, or due to the holiday, or we can, if the notices can be changed and have not yet been published for that particular one. I don't know if the city does one for the whole year or one updates every month, but.
Yeah, we'll discuss internally and let you know.
All right, that sounds good.
because I think the city just tweeted out that they're going to allow Baker's Night on October 29th.
Well, it's a mass event, so.
I know, it's a good thing, but
It's about the only thing
I
I
don't
think I'll put on a costume.
can't have a meeting
mask.
that night if we have. So I'm in favor of moving it to the 22nd or kicking everything to November.
I agree.
So whatever you can work out for us, Zach, keep us posted.
Well, Zach, it might help you if you know, if we just tell you who's not available if it's the 29th. So I'm not available. I think I heard just Jason and Sarah said they're not available. So if it helps their vote, if you're going to have nobody at the meeting, it might make it answer a lot easier for you.
Sorry, small kids.
Send me an email confirming that you won't be there and we'll go from there.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments, the next meeting is to be determined for lack of a quorum on the 29th of October. And we don't yet know if there'll be an application submitted, but the current meeting is adjourned. And if my board members would just stand